two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, we are Grok Talk. Welcome back from lovely Concord, New Hampshire, where it is lovely, but we're expecting buckets and buckets of rain later. I am Steve McDonald here with Skip Murphy. Skirp Murphy. I'm here with Skirp Murphy. Thanks again to Jim Kofalt, of course, for coming in to talk to us about the 603 Alliance, and Anne-Marie Banfield for our education discussion. Quick shout-out to the Rick Perry camp. Apologize for getting the schedule wrong. And we'll work that out for a future program. But our next guest is on the line. I saw him Thursday talking to Senator Marco Rubio at a Road to Reform event. AFP, Americans for Prosperity Regional Director Mark Lucas, welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Sure, great to have you. So I saw the event Thursday. We recorded it and posted it online. And it was a great event. Was that the first one, or have you guys been doing these for a while?
This is our second one. The first one that we did was actually with Marco Rubio in Washington, D.C., along the same talking points with XM Bank, just because that's been such a prominent issue. And we're going to continue to do these all across the country with a host of candidates. So last Thursday was the first one in the States outside of the Beltway, and it's great to be back in Manchester, New Hampshire, with real voters that are facing real issues.
Well, this is Skip, and I want to say thank you for doing that kind of stuff, and thanks for coming on the show. I do have to also thank you once again. Both Steve and I have been blessed by AFP. Steve was selected as a Blogger of the Year back a couple of Decembers ago, and you folks gave me the annual award for Activist of the Year in New Media back in 2011.
Yeah, and thank you, because what you guys are doing, online, on Twitter, on Facebook, your activism, that's so important. We need more and more people to be engaged, not just at the doors and on the phones, but you guys have been able to use new media in a way that has really been able to spread our free market message. So you guys have been great partners, and I'm watching you right now from my home in Iowa on the YouTube.
Oh, very good. See, this is the whole great thing. You can have a TV studio and a laptop. But when you come back with another candidate back to the state, please let us know, and we will try to be there and do the same thing that Steve did, and maybe we can do the live streaming. I've been kind of out of action for a while, and there's a whole lot of equipment still to schlep around. But getting back to why you're here.
Okay, so you covered most of the critical issues. We'll start with the Export-Import Bank for people who didn't see it. And we've had other AFP folk on to talk about this, but where do you think we are? Do you think they're actually going to let it expire?
I think it's going to expire, but I think it might be short-lived, that they're going to try to bring this back and resurrect it by possibly attaching it to an appropriations bill, or even worse, trying to attach it to a defense spending bill. And that just illustrates the problem with Washington, D.C. This thing can't survive an up and down vote, so they're going to try to use some legislative trickery to attach it to something that's got nothing to do with the Export-Import Bank. So it's supposed to expire on June 30th, unless there's some type of Hail Mary that becomes a completion. I'd be surprised. But we've seen weirder things happen. And surprisingly, we've seen weirder things happen in what's supposed to be a conservative Congress. These guys made us a lot of promises in 2014 about how they're going to bring conservatism to the United States Senate. And unfortunately, we're seeing the same type of cronyism that's existed for decades, regardless of party.
Yeah, unfortunately, they seem to operate under the same, under the meme that former Governor John Sununu, who we happen to call Papa Smurf here in New Hampshire, has basically said, well, all Republicans are conservative, which pains us to no small amount.
No, absolutely, and that's one of the things I love about Americans for Prosperity. I came on board in January 2012, and they told me that this was a nonpartisan organization that's going to hold people accountable, regardless if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and we're truly doing that. And in my home state of Iowa, we're holding Senator Joni Ernst and Senator Charles Grassley accountable. They're two conservative Republicans who are making a bad choice on the Export-Import Bank. You might have remembered Congressman Tom Latham, another conservative from central Iowa who supported the sequester. I told his folks, I'm going on WHO radio this evening. Let me know where you stand. He stood in the wrong, in the wrong direction of the sequester. So that's what I love about AFP is we get beyond political parties, we get beyond political personalities. We might like you 90% of the time, but if you're wrong, we're going to let you know it, and we're going to let our activists know it.
You're just like us. Thanks for following us.
Absolutely. I'm starting to see that trend more and more. And, I'm from Iowa, another early state like New Hampshire, and we're both, fiercely independent states that really value our role in presidential politics. But when I travel the state of Iowa, I've been up to New Hampshire a few times, in South Carolina, I'm really starting to see people that they think the party has left them, and they see that the party isn't what they've promised themselves to be. And especially in the light of 2014, we're hoping to have a very aggressive conservative agenda, and they've let us down with this Export-Import Bank, and they're going to let us down probably on a host of other issues. And you might have seen that the Speaker of the House yesterday got his first invite on Air Force One. I'm so happy for Congressman Boehner. They just continually bend over for this president.
No, and trust me, there is anger that I see as we traverse the blogosphere and here in New Hampshire, that all the magnificent, splendiferous words that we heard, and yet the Republicans, my other word of the day other than execrable is wusses. And basically we're seeing the D.C. Republicans being absolute wusses in that there's nothing there to back up their campaign words. They started to talk about the power of the purse, and they immediately, McConnell and Boehner, cut that off at the pass. And all we can do is call these yahoos Democrat lights. Now, with all that said, we are all registered Republicans, with the exception of one independent and one Democrat here for the folks that write for me at Granite Rock. A number of us have been state committee members, actual members of the NHGOP, duly elected as such. But I'll tell you, I am on the cusp of saying I'm going to go unenroll because I can't belong to a party that no longer is willing to fight for the values that its own principles say that they fight for. And we see this over and over again. And I think you're probably, as you're going around the state, around the country as AFP, you're probably hearing the same thing. And is the Republican Party going to become the latest Whig party?
Absolutely. And, there was so much hope after the election of 2014. I mean, when you look at the talking points, they're talking about repealing Obamacare. They're talking about really taking a hard look at spending and entitlement reform. I mean, they were using the talking points of the grassroots, and it really encouraged us to go out and work. It encouraged my AFP activists at the time I was the Iowa State Director, really encouraged our people to knock doors. I also oversaw Louisiana and Wisconsin. We just saw all this energy and all this excitement. And on election night, it was such a beautiful night to see the joy in our activists because they were able to see how much of a difference they made. And then these guys go back to Washington, and they think that we're not paying attention. And I think the status of the grassroots now is we're going to pay attention to you 365 days of the year. I think a lot of those folks, like Senator Marco Rubio mentioned last Thursday, that they notice that we're paying attention. They're seeing our phone calls. They're reading our letters and our emails. And the smart ones, like in the United States Senate, like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, they're paying attention. We need to make sure that a whole lot of the others pay attention because for us, grassroots, we don't just want to participate in election year. We want to participate every single day of every single year because we care about this country. I think the more and more that AFP can activate these folks, the 603 Alliance, what you guys are doing, we need to keep these grassroots folks engaged, keep them informed, and let them know how we can hold these people accountable in Washington.
Mark, and part of the Road to Reform event includes some video about exactly that thing. One of the opening videos explains, it shows activists and how they're being utilized in engaging the people. And so, Skip said, a lot of people were upset, obviously with the way things have gone. Are you seeing this as a way to get more people involved, or has there been any waning of interest in supporting this 365 24/7 strategy?
We're seeing more and more, interest because we're able to engage our people, and we do it in different ways. So obviously, you're knocking doors and making phone calls. Typically in election cycles, we're trying to keep that engagement up. We're able to see that with Greg Moore up in your state of New Hampshire, the state director, engaged people in two special election victories for the free market candidate, which was crucial, in the face of Hillary's people and the labor unions that are going door to door. So we're able to engage them on local fights all around the calendar year. In the state of Texas, we're able to engage in the mayoral election down in San Antonio this spring, where the Moore free market candidate was able to be elected and also be able to defeat a costly multi-billion-dollar streetcar project. So we're keeping them engaged, and also we want to take them to the legislative, district offices so they can meet with their congressmen back in the district. And those district office visits have been very successful. So the legislator and their staff are able to see that, AFP activists, conservative activists are engaged on XM. We did that during the sequester fight. So we're able to do different things all around the calendar year to keep people engaged, which to me is really exciting. Because I grew up in Iowa. I'm still living here in Iowa. Just like New Hampshire, we're a very engaged population when it comes to politics. But typically you would see these campaigns just to start to engage people when they needed them. We need to engage activists when they want to have their voices heard, and that's all year round. And that's why I'm so proud to be a part of AFP. And you had mentioned that video. So proud of our activists are just normal, everyday, hardworking Americans that want to fight for the future of their country.
And that's one of the things that I have enjoyed being associated with AFP the last few years, is that it is nonpartisan, but certainly from a right-of-center free market environment. And how do you work on these recalcitrant congressmen and senators in trying to let them know that being pro-business is not the same thing as being pro-free market? And have you found that just smooth, gentle words are effective, or do you have to come down on them like a ton of bricks?
I like both techniques. I'd much rather use the first one if we can talk to them in an easygoing manner, explain to them the issue about the Export-Import Bank, for instance, and bring them on our side. That's great. But sometimes you've got to hold their feet to the fire to make them see the light. And we had to do that on the sequester. I mean, we really had to take some shots at people. And I agree with you. Being pro-business is not being pro-free market. And I grew up as a young Republican. I voted for President George W. Bush in my first election. And I saw his first two terms, and we're seeing it with Barack Obama too. That it seems that regardless of party, they've been in bed with big business, and being in bed with big business is not free market. The Export-Import Bank picks winners and losers, and we're starting to see that. This Export-Import Bank's been around since FDR. It flew under the radar. I think back in the 90s, you had a lot of our activists would have said, you know what, this is pro-business, this is pro-America. But as we've gotten further along in the 2000s, we've seen big bank bailouts. We're seeing the Export-Import Bank. We're seeing a government that's catering to the big and the powerful multinational corporations. And we're seeing Wall Street do very successful, but we're not seeing it on Main Street. Normal, everyday people aren't seeing the benefits of what government's doing. And big government has offered us big promises, but they've offered the American people big disappointment.
Mark, stay on the line. We're going to take a quick break. We will be right back.